The $8,000 a month I've been sending for your care, Grandma. Dad's been helping you with it, right? I stared at my grandson across the restaurant table, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. $8,000? Dad? You have been giving Grandma the money, haven't you? The color drained from Danny's face. My son, the one I'd been thanking every month for his generous $1,000 help, looked like he'd seen a ghost. $8,000? I whispered. That's when I realized my own son had been lying to me for years. But the truth about what he'd been doing with that money, what I discovered about his secret life while I was rationing heart medication and choosing between food and rent, that changed everything. This is the story of how I learned that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones stealing from you, and how my grandson's surprise visit for Thanksgiving dinner exposed a betrayal so shocking it destroyed our family forever. But it also saved my life. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of incredible women who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. My name is Grace Bennett, and at 68, I never thought I'd be counting pills like they were diamonds. But there I was this Tuesday morning, shaking my heart medication bottle and hearing only 3 tablets rattle around inside. 3 tablets. That meant 3 more days before I'd have to choose between my prescription and groceries again. I sat at my kitchen table in my little apartment on Maple Street in Columbus, Ohio, staring at the orange bottle. The rent notice lay next to it, stamped in red. Final notice, $200 late fee added. My pension check barely covered the rent, and my part-time job at Peterson's grocery down the block paid just enough for utilities and food. The medications? Well, those were a luxury I couldn't always afford. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd worked for 35 years as a school secretary, saved every penny with my late husband Frank, and now here I was at nearly 70, still punching a time clock and rationing the pills that kept my heart beating steady. I tucked the bottle into my purse and headed out for my Tuesday afternoon shift. The November air bit through my worn coat as I walked the 4 blocks to Peterson's. My hands were already aching from the cold, but I couldn't afford to call in sick. Every hour mattered. "Morning, Grace," called out Pete Peterson as I hung up my coat in the tiny back office. "How are you feeling today?" "Right as rain," I lied, forcing a smile. Pete was a good man who'd given me this job when no one else would hire someone my age. He didn't need to know about my pill counting or the fact that I'd skipped breakfast to save money. I started my shift restocking the canned goods aisle, each can feeling heavier than it should. My chest felt tight, but I pushed through it. I had to. Around 2 o'clock, Danny walked through the front door. My son always dressed sharp, today in a crisp navy suit and shiny leather shoes that probably cost more than I made in a month. At 42, he still had that charming smile that had gotten him out of trouble as a boy, though his hairline was creeping back and his face showed the stress lines of a man who'd been divorced for 3 years. "Hey there, Mom," he said, wrapping me in a quick hug that smelled like expensive cologne. "Looking good today." "Danny, what a nice surprise. What brings you by?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "Just wanted to drop off this month's help. I know things are tight." I took the envelope, feeling the familiar weight of cash inside. Danny had been helping me out for the past 2 years, giving me $1,000 every month. It wasn't much, but it meant I could eat something besides canned soup and crackers. "You're too good to me," I said, my voice catching slightly. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Mom, you raised me right. This is the least I can do." He glanced around the store, his expression shifting to something that looked almost like pity. "You sure you need to keep working here? I mean, with what I give you each month." "I like keeping busy," I said quickly. The truth was, even with his help, I still needed every dollar from this job, but I didn't want him to know how bad things really were. Danny was doing enough already. He checked his watch, a sleek silver thing I'd never seen before. "I've got to run, meeting with some clients. You take care of yourself, okay?" After he left, I slipped into the bathroom and opened the envelope. 10 crisp $100 bills, just like always. I folded them carefully and tucked them into my wallet, already calculating how to stretch this money until next month. As I walked back to the canned goods aisle, I caught myself smiling. My son might have his flaws, but he took care of his mother. That meant something. 3 days later, on Friday afternoon, my world tilted sideways. I was restocking the breakfast cereal when the familiar tightness in my chest became something else entirely. The boxes of cornflakes suddenly weighed 100 pounds each, and the fluorescent lights above me started swimming like fish in a bowl. I'd been without my heart pills for 2 days now. I'd taken my last one on Wednesday morning, the day after Danny had visited with the money. The new prescription sat at Walgreens Pharmacy with a price tag of $240, money I simply didn't have, even with Danny's $1,000. I'd already allocated every penny to rent, utilities, and food. My hands started tingling. The aisle stretched out in front of me like a tunnel, getting longer and darker with each heartbeat. I tried to call out to Pete, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. The boxes scattered as I went down, hitting the linoleum floor hard enough to rattle my teeth. The last thing I remembered was the ceiling tiles spinning above me and the distant sound of Pete shouting for someone to call 911. I woke up in Riverside Methodist Hospital with an IV in my arm and a young doctor with kind eyes explaining that I'd had what he called a cardiac episode. Not quite a heart attack, but my heart had been under serious stress from the irregular rhythm. "Mrs. Bennett, when did you last take your prescribed medication?" Dr. Martinez asked, flipping through my chart. I felt heat creep up my neck. "I've been spacing them out a bit, to make them last longer." His pen stopped moving. "Spacing them out? Mrs. Bennett, this medication needs to be taken daily. Missing doses can be extremely dangerous." "I know, but the words stuck in my throat. How do you explain to someone half your age that you can't afford to stay alive?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Mrs. Bennett? There's a gentleman here to see you. Says he's your son." Danny walked in looking flustered, his tie loosened and his hair slightly messed up. For a moment, he looked like the little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. "Mom, Jesus, what happened? They called me at work and said you collapsed." "I'm fine, honey, just a little spell." Dr. Martinez cleared his throat. "Mr. Bennett, your mother needs to stay on her heart medication consistently. She's been rationing her pills, which caused today's episode." Danny's face went through several emotions before settling on what looked like frustration. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were having trouble with your medications?" "You already do so much," I said quietly. "The pharmacy cost for her prescription is about $240 monthly," Dr. Martinez added. "Insurance covers some, but there's still a significant out-of-pocket expense." Danny shifted in his chair. I watched his jaw work like he was chewing something bitter. "Doctor, I help my mother financially every month. She should be able to afford her medications." "I do manage most of the time," I said quickly, not wanting Danny to feel guilty. "This was just a particularly tight month." "Mrs. Bennett, you'll need to stay overnight for observation," Dr. Martinez said, "and we'll need to run some additional tests. I'll have the financial coordinator come speak with you about the costs." After the doctor left, Danny sat beside my bed, staring at his hands. "Mom, I wish I could help more with the medical bills, but things are tight for me too right now. I'm already giving you what I can each month." "I know, sweetheart, you're already doing more than enough." But even as I said it, something nagged at me. When Danny had rushed in, I'd caught a glimpse of him through the window, getting out of a car in the parking lot. It was sleek and silver. Definitely not the beat-up Honda he'd been driving the last time I'd seen his car 2 years ago. "What kind of car are you driving these days?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He looked up sharply. "What? Oh, that? It's just a lease. For work, you know. Clients expect a certain image." "It looked nice from here." "Yeah, well, it's all about appearances in my business." He stood up abruptly. "I should let you rest. I'll check on you tomorrow, okay?" After he left, I lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling. The math wasn't adding up somehow, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Saturday morning brought discharge papers and a bill that made my stomach drop. Even with Medicare, I still owed $850 out of pocket. Danny had promised to pick me up at 10, but noon came and went with no sign of him. Finally, at 12:30, I saw a silver car pull up to the entrance. But when I got closer, my steps slowed. It wasn't just nice. It was a BMW, brand new, with leather seats and that distinctive logo gleaming on the hood. "Sorry I'm late, Mom." "Lost track of time," Danny said, dressed in expensive-looking casual clothes. I slid into the passenger seat, trying not to gawk at the cream leather interior and digital dashboard that looked like a spaceship. "This is quite a car," I said carefully. "Company car. Insurance sales requires a certain image with high-end clients." The words came out practiced. We drove in silence, and I found myself thinking, if he can afford to lease a car like this, maybe, but I pushed the thought away. Danny was already doing so much for me. "The hospital bills are pretty steep," I said carefully, not wanting to sound ungrateful. His hands tightened on the wheel. "Mom, I'm already giving you $1,000 a month. That should cover your medications. But there's rent, utilities, food. Maybe you need to budget better. I've got my own expenses, you know. Rent, car payments, business costs." Something cold settled in my chest. He was making it sound like I was being unreasonable, like $1,000 a month should solve all my problems. I stayed quiet, but my mind was racing. Nothing he was saying made sense anymore. That evening, I called my neighbor Mrs. Kowalski, who'd worked at a BMW dealership. "Agnes, what would a BMW sedan lease cost?" "Those new 5 Series? At least $800 a month, probably more." $800 a month. Almost as much as Danny gave me to live on. I hung up and stared at the bottle of heart pills I still couldn't afford. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to things that didn't add up, like how Danny always seemed to have new clothes, or how his watch caught the light differently each visit. But what bothered me most was thinking about Alex. My grandson had always been the light of my life. When Danny's marriage fell apart and he moved back home for 6 months, 8-year-old Alex would spend weekends with Frank and me. While Danny wallowed in his divorce, Alex would help me tend my little herb garden on the apartment balcony, his small hands carefully watering the basil and oregano. "Grandma Grace, why do grown-ups make everything so complicated?" he'd ask, dirt smudged on his cheek. "Because we forget how to see things simply, sweetheart," I'd tell him. Alex never forgot how to see things simply. Even as a teenager, when other kids were getting into trouble, Alex would come over after school to help me with grocery shopping or to show me something new he'd learned about computers. He was brilliant with technology, always patient when teaching me how to use my smartphone or set up my email. "You're going to change the world someday," I'd tell him. "I want to change your world first, Grandma. Make things easier for you and Grandpa." When Frank died 4 years ago, Alex was 21 and finishing college. He drove 6 hours from his university to be at the funeral, and afterwards he was the only one who noticed I wasn't eating. He brought me soup every day for 2 weeks, sitting at my kitchen table making sure I took each spoonful. "Grandpa would want you to take care of yourself," he'd say gently. A year later, Alex graduated with his computer science degree and announced he was moving to Dubai. Some technology company wanted him to help develop a new software platform. "It's a huge opportunity, Grandma. If this works out, I'll be able to take care of you the way you and Grandpa took care of me." Danny had driven Alex to the airport. I'd hugged my grandson goodbye, and he'd whispered in my ear, "I'll call you every Sunday, I promise. And someday soon I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about money again." That was 3 years ago. The Sunday calls stopped after just a few months. Whenever I asked Danny about calling Alex, he'd always have an excuse. "The time difference makes it tough, Mom." Or "He's working 18-hour days just to survive over there." Or "His phone plan doesn't allow international calls right now." When I'd ask for Alex's phone number or address in Dubai, Danny would deflect. "I handle all the communication with him, Mom. He specifically asked me to be the go-between so he doesn't get distracted from work. But he sends his love through me all the time." I'd stopped asking after a while. I didn't want to be a burden. The hardest part was the birthdays. Every year on Alex's birthday in March, I'd bake his favorite chocolate chip cookies and ask Danny to send them somehow. Danny would take them and promise to figure out shipping to Dubai, but I never knew if Alex actually received them. For my own birthdays, Danny would bring me a card that he claimed was from Alex, but the handwriting was always Danny's. When I mentioned this once, Danny said Alex had asked him to write it because his handwriting is terrible now from all the computer work. Last Christmas, I'd spent weeks knitting Alex a scarf. I remembered how he used to get cold easily, even as a child. I picked out the softest blue yarn because it matched his eyes, just like his grandfather's. When I gave it to Danny to send, he looked at it for a long moment. "Mom, you know Alex is in Dubai, right? It's like 90 degrees there. He won't need a scarf. Maybe he travels somewhere cold for work?" I'd said hopefully. Danny had taken the scarf, but something in his expression made me wonder if Alex would ever see it. The silence from my grandson hurt more than I let on. Sometimes I'd catch myself setting 3 places at my little kitchen table out of habit, forgetting that it was just me now. I'd talk to his picture on my refrigerator, telling him about my day at the grocery store, or how Mrs. Kowalski's cat had gotten stuck on the fire escape again. "You'd laugh at that story, wouldn't you, sweetheart?" I'd say to the photo of him in his graduation cap and gown. But even with the pain of missing him, I was proud. My grandson was out there in the world, building something important with his brilliant mind. Even if he was too busy to call, even if Danny said he was struggling, I knew Alex would succeed eventually. He'd always been special that way. I just wished I could tell him so myself. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was sitting at my kitchen table counting out pills when there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Danny usually called before coming over, and Mrs. Kowalski had her own key for emergencies. When I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. "Alex?" I whispered. There stood my grandson, but not the boy I remembered. This was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive-looking coat that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. His face had filled out and he wore his dark hair shorter now, but those eyes were exactly the same. Frank's eyes, kind and intelligent. "Grandma Grace," he said, and his voice was deeper than I remembered, more confident. I dropped the pill bottle right there in my doorway and reached for him. He caught me in a hug that lifted me off my feet, and I started crying before I could stop myself. "I can't believe you're here," I sobbed into his shoulder. "I can't believe you're really here." "I've missed you so much," he said, and I could hear tears in his voice too. "God, Grandma, I've missed you." When I finally pulled back to look at his face, I saw him taking in my appearance, my worn housecoat, my tired face, the way my hands shook slightly from the medication I'd been rationing. "Danny doesn't know you're here, does he?" I asked. "Not yet. I wanted to surprise both of you." He bent down to pick up my spilled pills, his expression growing concerned as he read the label. "Grandma, are you feeling all right?" "You look—" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just getting older." I quickly took the pills from him. Come in. You must be exhausted from traveling." As Alex stepped into my small apartment, I watched him take everything in. The old furniture, the tiny kitchen, the stack of bills on my counter that I'd forgotten to hide. His jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he walked over to my refrigerator, where his graduation photo still hung with a magnet. "You still have this old thing?" "Of course I do. I look at it every morning with my coffee." I moved to stand beside him. "You look so young there." I was young and terrified. He touched the edge of the photo gently. "I remember you and Grandpa being so proud that day. Grandpa kept telling everyone at the ceremony that his grandson was going to change the world with computers. He was right, wasn't he?" Alex turned to look at me. "I hope so. That's what I've been trying to do anyway." We moved to the living room, and Alex settled onto my old couch like he'd done 1,000 times before. For a moment he looked like that 8-year-old boy again, the one who used to curl up next to me while I read him stories. "Do you remember," I said, settling into my chair across from him, "when you used to spend weekends here after your parents' divorce? You were so small and so serious about everything." Alex smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him since he arrived. I remember you teaching me to make chocolate chip cookies. You let me crack the eggs even though I got shell pieces in the bowl every time. And you always wanted to eat the cookie dough before we baked them. You'd pretend to scold me, but then you'd sneak me spoonfuls when Grandpa wasn't looking. His expression grew tender. You always made everything better, Grandma. When my parents were fighting, when I was confused about why families fell apart, you'd just let me help you in the kitchen and everything felt normal again. You were such a good boy. Always so helpful, so thoughtful. You and Grandpa taught me that. How to be thoughtful, how to notice when people needed help. Alex's voice grew quiet. Remember when Mrs. Thompson next door broke her hip? You made casseroles for her family for 3 weeks straight, even though money was tight. Mrs. Thompson was a good neighbor. You help people when they need it. That's exactly what you told me then. And when I asked why we helped when we didn't have much ourselves, you said— He paused, remembering. We always have enough to share, I finished, because kindness doesn't cost money. That lesson stuck with me, Grandma. Everything I've built, every success I've had, it's been driven by wanting to help people the way you helped me. The way you helped everyone. I felt tears prick at my eyes. I'm so proud of the man you've become, Alex. Your grandfather would be over the moon. I think about him every day, about both of you. Alex leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. That's actually part of why I'm here. I've been thinking a lot about family lately, about how much time I've lost being away. You were building your future, sweetheart. That's what young people do. But I should have been better about staying in touch. I should have called more, visited sooner. He ran a hand through his hair. Dad said you preferred not to be bothered with calls, that it would worry you to hear from me too much. But sitting here now, I realize how much I've missed just talking to you. Something twisted in my stomach at the mention of Danny's explanation, but I pushed it away. I've missed talking to you too, more than you know. Tell me about your life now. Are you happy working at the grocery store? I chose my words carefully. It keeps me busy. Pete is a good boss, and I like helping customers find what they need. But are you happy, Grandma? Really happy? The question hung in the air between us. How could I tell him that I counted pills like precious stones, that I sometimes chose between eating and medication, that I missed him so much some days that I'd call his old phone number just to hear his voicemail? I'm happy you're here, I said finally. That's all that matters right now. Alex studied my face for a long moment. Have you eaten today? You look thinner than I remember. I had some toast this morning. Toast. His eyebrows drew together. Grandma, it's nearly 5 in the evening. I'm not very hungry these days. Small appetite. But Alex was already standing up, moving toward my kitchen. Let me make you something. Do you have any eggs? I could make scrambled eggs the way you taught me. Alex, you don't need to— Please, let me take care of you for once. He opened my refrigerator, and I saw his face change as he took in the sparse contents. A carton of milk that was nearly empty, some leftover soup, a few slices of bread. His jaw tightened again. Grandma, where are your groceries? I shop day by day, buy what I need when I need it. When's the last time you had a proper meal? I couldn't remember, and my silence was answer enough. Alex closed the refrigerator door and turned to face me. This isn't right, he said quietly. You shouldn't be living like this. I'm fine, Alex. I've been taking care of myself for 70 years. But you shouldn't have to just survive, Grandma. You should be comfortable. You should be able to buy whatever food you want, fill your medicine cabinet, live somewhere nice. This apartment is perfectly fine. It's not fine. His voice was firm but gentle. You deserve so much better than this. Before I could respond, he was reaching for his phone. I'm calling Dad. We're going out to dinner tonight, all 3 of us. Somewhere nice. We need to celebrate. Alex, that's very sweet, but— No arguments, Grandma. I've been successful beyond my wildest dreams, and I want to share that with my family. He was already dialing. Dad, it's Alex. Yeah, I'm here. I'm at Grandma's. Yes, surprise. Listen, I want to take you both out to dinner tonight. There's this restaurant downtown I've been wanting to try. I watched my grandson's face as he talked to his father, saw the confidence and authority that came with success. This wasn't the uncertain young man who'd left for Dubai 3 years ago. This was someone who'd built something important, someone who was used to making things happen. He'll meet us there, Alex said, hanging up. Now let's get you dressed up, Grandma. Tonight, we're going to celebrate properly. An hour later, I found myself sitting in the back seat of a car nicer than any I'd ever been in. Alex had called it an Uber, and he'd helped me into my best dress, the burgundy one from church. I felt underdressed compared to Alex's crisp shirt and expensive watch, but he kept telling me I looked beautiful. You know, I said as we drove through downtown Columbus, your grandfather would have loved to see this. His grandson, successful and taking care of his family. I learned from the best, Alex said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Everything good about me came from you and Grandpa. The restaurant Alex chose was unlike anywhere I'd ever been. Soft lighting, cloth napkins, servers in black uniforms who seemed to appear whenever you needed something. The menu didn't have prices on it, which made my stomach tighten with worry. Danny arrived 20 minutes late, slightly out of breath and wearing a suit I'd never seen before. His face was flushed, and he kept checking his phone. Son, I can't believe you're here. Danny wrapped Alex in a hug that seemed just a little too enthusiastic. You look great. Dubai's been good to you. It has, Alex said simply, studying his father's face. You look good too, Dad. That's a nice suit. This old thing? Danny tugged at his jacket. Just something for client meetings. We settled into our table, and I found myself caught between joy at having my family together and anxiety about the prices on this menu. The cheapest thing I could find was still more than I spent on groceries in a week. Order whatever you want, Grandma, Alex said, as if reading my thoughts. This is my treat. Alex, you don't have to, please. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. As we looked at the menus, Alex started talking about his business, how well it was doing, the expansion into new markets. Danny nodded along, but I noticed he seemed nervous, fidgeting with his napkin. You know, Dad, Alex said casually as the waiter brought our drinks. I've been meaning to ask you something. How's Grandma been doing with the money I've been sending? I looked up from my menu, confused. Money? Alex turned to me with a smile. The $8,000 a month I've been sending for your care, Grandma. Dad's been helping you with it, right? He looked back at Danny. She's been getting everything she needs? Her medications, better living situation, anything she wants? The color drained from Danny's face. I stared at Alex, then at Danny, my mind struggling to process what I just heard. $8,000? I whispered. Alex's smile faded as he looked between us. Dad, you have been giving Grandma the money, haven't you? The silence stretched across our table like a chasm. Danny's face had gone from flushed to pale in the span of seconds, and I could see a thin sheen of sweat forming on his forehead despite the restaurant's cool air. Of course I've been helping Mom. Danny stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. You know I have, Alex. I give her money every month. How much? Alex's voice was deadly quiet. Danny's eyes darted between Alex and me, then to the other diners around us. Can we discuss this later? Privately? How much, Dad? I felt like I was watching this conversation from underwater. $8,000 a month. Alex had been sending $8,000 a month for my care, and I'd been getting 1,000, I said, my voice cracking. Danny gives me $1,000 a month. Alex's face went very still. The expensive watch on his wrist caught the restaurant's soft lighting as his hands slowly clenched into fists on the white tablecloth. 1,000. He repeated the words like he was trying to make sense of a foreign language. Out of 8,000. Alex, you don't understand, Danny said quickly, his words tumbling over each other. There are expenses, transfer fees, currency exchanges, taxes. $7,000 in fees? Alex's voice carried a dangerous edge that made our waiter, approaching with bread, turn and walk quickly in the other direction. What kind of transfer fees cost $7,000, Dad? It's complicated. International banking, you wouldn't understand. I've been sending money internationally for 3 years, Alex said, his voice growing louder. I know exactly what the fees are. They're about $15. Danny's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Around us, other diners had started to notice our table, conversations dropping to whispers as they sensed the tension. Where is the money, Dad? Alex, please, we can talk about this at home. Where is the money? The question exploded across the restaurant loud enough that several tables went completely silent. Our waiter retreated to the safety of the kitchen, and I saw a manager start walking in our direction. I sat frozen in my chair, my mind racing to process what I was hearing. $7,000. Danny had been stealing $7,000 every month while I rationed heart medication and chose between rent and groceries. You've been living off my money, Alex continued, his voice now low and controlled, which somehow seemed more frightening than when he'd shouted. The BMW, the expensive clothes, the nice restaurants, all of it paid for with money I sent to keep my grandmother alive. Son, it's not like that, isn't it? Alex pulled out his phone and started scrolling through something. Let me see. I've been sending you $8,000 for Grandma and another $8,000 for your own expenses. $16,000 a month, Dad. $16,000, and you still stole from her. Another $8,000? My head started spinning. Alex had been sending Danny his own money too. I give you almost $200,000 a year, Alex said, each word carefully enunciated, and you let your mother live in poverty while you drive around in a BMW? Danny's face crumpled. Alex, you don't understand how hard it's been. Starting over, trying to rebuild my life, finding work at my age. Your divorce was 17 years ago. I know, but finding steady work, it's been difficult. You don't have a job, do you, Dad? The question hung in the air like a blade. Danny's mouth worked silently. The insurance sales, the client meetings, all of it. Lies. Alex leaned back in his chair, staring at his father like he'd never seen him before. You've been living entirely off the money I send you, and you still couldn't leave Grandma's portion alone. I found my voice, though it sounded strange and far away. You don't have a job? Danny turned to me with tears in his eyes. Mom, I can explain. You've been pretending to go to work for 2 years? It's not that simple. You told me you were helping me out of the goodness of your heart, I said, my voice growing stronger. You let me thank you over and over for your generosity. You let me feel guilty for needing help. I was helping you. I gave you $1,000 every month. My money. Alex slammed his hand on the table, making the water glasses jump. You gave her 1/8 of her own money and took credit for it. The manager had reached our table, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and the practiced calm of someone who'd dealt with difficult situations before. Gentlemen, ladies, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voices down, she said softly. You're disturbing other guests. Alex looked up at her, and I saw him make a visible effort to control himself. I'm sorry. We'll be leaving soon. Perhaps I could arrange a private dining room, she offered. That won't be necessary. Alex stood up, pulling out his wallet. He placed several $100s on the table without counting them. For the inconvenience. He turned to me, and his expression softened completely.
Grandma, will you come with me?
I think we need to have a conversation away from here. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I started to stand, Danny reached for my arm. Mom, please, let me explain. There's so much you don't understand. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then at his face. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd been so grateful to for his monthly help, the man who'd been stealing from his own mother while she couldn't afford medicine. Don't touch me, I said quietly. Mom, I said, don't touch me. I pulled my arm free and stood up. I don't want to hear your explanations, Danny. I don't want to hear anything from you right now. Alex was beside me instantly, offering his arm for support. "Are you okay, Grandma?" I looked back at Danny, sitting alone at our table with tears streaming down his face, surrounded by the wreckage of his lies. Part of me wanted to comfort him, the way I'd comforted him through every scrape and heartbreak of his life, but a larger part of me felt something I'd never felt toward my son before: disgust. "I'm fine," I told Alex. "I'm ready to go." As we walked out of the restaurant, I heard Danny call after us. "Mom, Alex, please, we're family." Alex paused at the door and turned back. "Family doesn't steal from each other, Dad. Family doesn't let their mother choose between medication and food while they drive around in luxury cars. I can fix this. I can pay it back." "With what money? You don't have a job, remember?" And then we were outside in the cold November air, and I was breathing deeply for the first time in what felt like hours. "Grandma," Alex said gently, "are you okay? Do you need to sit down?" I looked up at this man, my grandson, who'd been trying to take care of me from 3,000 miles away while his father robbed me blind. "I'm okay, sweetheart, but I think I need to hear everything. All of it." We sat in Alex's hotel room at the Hilton downtown, room service coffee growing cold between us as my grandson explained 3 years of lies and manipulation. Every revelation felt like another weight lifting off my shoulders, even as it broke my heart. "I've been sending Dad money since my 2nd year in Dubai," Alex said, his voice tired but patient. $8,000 a month for his living expenses because he told me he was struggling to find work after being laid off. I didn't question it. He's my father, and I wanted to help. And the money for me? That started 2 years ago. Dad called me, said you were having health problems, that your medications were expensive, and you were too proud to ask for help directly. He said you'd made him promise not to tell me how bad things were because you didn't want to worry me. I closed my eyes. Even Danny's request for help had been a lie designed to make himself look caring. "I was so grateful he was looking out for you," Alex continued. "I told him to spare no expense. Whatever you needed, better doctors, a nicer apartment, a house if you wanted one. I said money was no object when it came to your care. All this time, I thought Danny was sacrificing to help me. And all this time, I thought you were living comfortably because of what I was sending." Alex's jaw tightened. "Do you know what really kills me? Every month when I sent the money, Dad would update me on how you were doing. He'd say you were grateful but didn't want to talk on the phone because you felt guilty about needing help. He made me believe that not calling you was an act of kindness. I thought you'd outgrown your old grandmother. Never." Alex reached across and took my hand. "Grandma, you're the most important person in my life. Everything I've achieved, it's all been with the goal of taking care of you the way you took care of me." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the magnitude of Danny's betrayal. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Alex was quiet for a long moment, staring out the hotel window at the Columbus skyline. "I'm moving back to the States," he said finally. "I've been planning it for months anyway. My company is expanding into North America, and I need to be here to oversee it." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. You'll be closer to home." "Actually, Grandma, I was hoping home could be closer to you." He turned to face me. "I'm buying a house here in Columbus, a big house with plenty of room. I want you to come live with me." My breath caught. "Alex, I could." "Why not? I'm an old woman. You're young and successful. You should be thinking about finding someone special, starting your own family." "You are my family," Alex said firmly. "The most important family I have. And I'm not asking you to be my housekeeper or anything like that. I'm asking you to let me take care of you the way you took care of me when I needed it most." Tears started flowing down my cheeks before I could stop them. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Alex smiled, and for a moment I saw the 8-year-old boy who used to help me water my herbs. "Besides, I'm going to need someone to teach me how to make those chocolate chip cookies again. I tried a few times in Dubai, but they never tasted right. You never did learn to crack an egg properly." "See? I need you, Grandma." I wiped my eyes with the tissue Alex handed me. "What about Danny?" Alex's expression hardened. "What about him?" "He's still your father. Still my son. He's cut off. Completely. No more money. No more contact. I'm done enabling his theft and lies. Grandma, he stole from you. He let you go without medication, live in that tiny apartment, work at your age when you should be relaxing and enjoying life. And he did it all while living in luxury off money meant for your care. Alex's voice was steel. I can forgive a lot of things, but I will never forgive someone who hurts you. I thought about Danny, probably still sitting in that restaurant or maybe back in his apartment, trying to figure out how to explain away 3 years of theft. Part of me still wanted to make excuses for him, to find some way to understand how my son had become someone who could steal from his own mother. But a larger part of me felt something I'd never experienced before: relief. Relief that I wouldn't have to be grateful for scraps. Relief that I wouldn't have to choose between medicine and food. Relief that my grandson loved me enough to move across the world to take care of me. When would this happen? I asked. I've already put an offer in on a house in Upper Arlington. Beautiful neighborhood, close to everything you might need. We could move you in within the month if you want. Upper Arlington? That was one of the nicest areas in Columbus. Alex, that must cost. Grandma, I'm very, very successful. More than I ever dreamed possible. I can afford to give you anything you want for the rest of your life, and it won't even make a dent in what I have. I looked at my grandson, this man who'd built an empire in 3 years and was willing to uproot his entire life to care for an old woman. How did I get so lucky to have you as a grandson? I think I'm the lucky one, Alex said softly. I get to repay the woman who taught me everything that matters. 3 weeks later, I stood in the marble-floored foyer of Alex's new house, looking up at a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd made in the past 5 years. The house was beautiful. 6 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen that made my tiny apartment kitchenette look like a closet, and a library where Alex had already installed a comfortable reading chair just for me. Your room is upstairs, Alex said, carrying my few belongings. But I had them put in a small refrigerator and coffee maker so you don't have to come downstairs if you don't want to. Complete independence, but I'm right down the hall if you need anything. This is too much, Alex. It's not nearly enough. He set down my suitcase and hugged me. Welcome home, Grandma. That first morning, I woke up in a bed softer than clouds, in a room larger than my entire old apartment. Sunlight streamed through windows that looked out onto a garden that would make my little herb collection look like weeds. I made my way downstairs to find Alex in the kitchen, standing over the stove with a confused expression on his face. Having trouble? I asked. I'm trying to make scrambled eggs, he admitted, but they keep turning into... I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in longer than I could remember. Move over, sweetheart. Let me show you how it's done. As I taught my successful, brilliant grandson how to properly scramble eggs in his gourmet kitchen, I thought about Danny. He'd called Alex's phone dozens of times, but Alex never answered. He'd even shown up at my old apartment, but I was already gone. Mrs. Kowalski told me later that he'd cried on the front steps. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part of me understood that some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Danny had chosen his BMW over his mother's medication. He'd chosen his comfort over my survival. Alex had chosen to give up his life in Dubai to make sure I never went without again. There, I said, as Alex took his first bite of properly cooked eggs. How's that? Perfect, he said, smiling at me. Absolutely perfect. As I watched my grandson eat breakfast in our beautiful kitchen, I realized something profound. I was finally truly home. Not because of the marble floors, or the chandelier, or the garden outside, but because I was with someone who loved me enough to cross oceans to take care of me. At 68 years old, after 3 years of counting pills and choosing between food and medicine, I was finally living the life my grandson had dreamed of giving me. And Danny? Well, Danny was learning what it felt like to live without family to steal from. Some people might say that was cruel, but I called it justice. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Was Alex too harsh in completely cutting off his father, or do some betrayals deserve zero tolerance? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more stories like mine.